What's going on, everybody? Today I just wanted to play a little Elden Ring and talk about society. I think that's what the topic is. Really, I wanted to talk about how absurd everything has gotten, um, and just the craziness of the world right now. It's kind of insane, right? I feel like a lot of people, fuck, get off, Jesus Christ. I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. Um, Whether you're on the left or right politically, I think, um, a lot of people feel like everything has gotten absurd, and I don't blame them. I don't. I don't think anyone is wrong in that idea. It definitely does feel like everything is very crazy, and I feel like a part of that has to do with social media and the abundance of the internet. Just how quickly you can view anything going on in the world, right? And I think that we forget that what we see online and on the news. Ooh, fuck. Um, what we see online and what we see in the news is not what the majority is, right? And this goes for everything, from like insane people to mass shootings to gender ideology and all of these. It goes for everything, honestly. It really does. And we have forgotten how to be logical about things. And I get it. A lot of people default, not even default, just it's normal, I guess. So I guess it is default. But a lot of people just use emotion to think about things. And I get it, especially for people who are in marginalized communities. These people have dealt with a lot, I believe, throughout history, and that's just a simple fact. It's true. Marginalized communities do exist, and they are there, and they have dealt with things that have affected them even still today. And a really easy point for this is the historic precedent of racism in America. Even though it was a country founded on the ideas of freedom, but they're there. For starters, when colonial times were happening, and the British came over here and colonized, they wiped out native populations, Native Americans. All right, shut up. That was a mistake. I don't know why I did that. I don't need his help. Um, we we came over, or not we. I'm not British, but they came over here and they killed natives, right? They took land that what definitely wasn't theirs, and they did kill the natives, and they did use the natives for resources and all these things, and it's true. You can't say it didn't happen. And then black people as well. They were slaves for a very long time, and it does have a lasting effect on them and in society. Slaves did build this country, and they did exist. It did happen, and it was white people who were controlling them. And you can say that there was slavery all over the world and whatever, but chattel slavery is what was happening here, and it is very bad, no matter what you say, and no matter where else it was happening in the world. It doesn't matter. It was happening here, and it was bad, and we do need to teach about it. And this idea that it doesn't matter isn't true. Even though a lot of people want to get rid of the idea of race, and I think that we should, personally, and that we say that race doesn't matter and then say that race is a thing and that we should worry about it. I get why you could see those as conflicting viewpoints. But there is a difference between us saying race shouldn't matter and there being effects from a past world still living in today based on race, right? there are negative components to race that still exist, that still affect people today from the past, even though we want to say race shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter, but it does. And I think that's a very important thing that we have forgotten. And we can't ignore it. We can't stop teaching it. We just can't. It's very important to us in society that we continue to teach these so that way people learn and we don't repeat history. But at the same time, there are solutions to these problems that work, yes, but that aren't maybe the best way forward and that are exclusive. A really good example of this, that I believe at least, is reparations. Reparations would work. Just logically, fiscally, money does fix a lot of the problems that we have today. However, however, it's not the best solution. I don't think it's the solution that we should use, because I think there is a better solution. Because even though racism does play a part in today's society, even though black people as a whole have felt the effects and continue to feel the effects of slavery in this country, there are still poor white people. There are poor Mexicans, there are poor Asians, there are every race has its poor people, and that is because of the systems that we have in place today. I say reparations isn't a good solution because there is a better solution, and that is making sure that every person is cared for equally. And what I mean by that is we should have an economic system that makes sure the base standard of living is livable, right? There should be no profit incentive in food. There should be no profit incentive in housing. There should be no profit incentive in necessities for life. Right? That is the first point that we get to. There shouldn't be a profit incentive for necessities in the world. Because if it's a necessity, then that means your choice is pay for it or die. Right? That doesn't make any sense. That's not what freedom is. If your only other choice than to pay for it is to die, that's not a freedom of choice. That is a threat. Now, you can say that, we're a capitalist society, and we are, and that's not inherently bad. Privatization isn't inherently bad. The issue is companies, right, as we can all agree, its main motive is to make a profit. This is not argued. This is just the truth of the matter. However, because there is profit incentive for necessities, it makes it very hard to justify the system, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of people who are younger, my age, don't like capitalism right now because they are feeling the negative effects of it. And that is because we have a system that has prioritized corporations over its people. That is where America is at today. It's not necessarily the fault of capitalism. It's the fault of our government. And that is because we have allowed people who care only about money, who care only about profit themselves, to run our government. Which, when you think about it, doesn't make much sense, right? Of course, if we elect people who only care about profit into our government, that is what's going to be the focus of it. Because a corporation, that's what it's for. It's to make profit. So why is it that corporations control everything? America, right, is supposed to be a democracy. And a democracy is a... Fuck. How? Ah, shit. Anyway, a democracy is a government which is ran by the people and for the people, right? A democracy is a type of government that needs to appeal to its people. And that's what America is supposed to be, a democracy. Except we've strayed from that idea. In 2016, there was a Supreme Court case with Citizens United that allowed corporations to be considered people in the eyes of the government. And everything has gotten worse since then. Everything. Everything is worse since then. And it is because of that that everything is worse. We have allowed corporations to run the country. Ooh, fuck, that was bad. We have allowed corporations to run the country, and that is why everything is so bad. There's nothing inherently wrong with privatization of business. There's nothing wrong with it. But if we're going to privatize corporations, if we are going to allow profit to exist in a society, then there has to be a base level which stops corporations from dipping lower than that. And the only way to do that is through a government. That's the only way to do it. You have to have a government that is enforcing rules and enforcing a strict base level of living, a base level standard of living that allows people to ensure their own safety, right? We can't allow corporations to set the standard base of living, because a corporation's job is to make profit, and they're going to do anything they can to make profit, and that isn't necessarily bad. But what is bad is our government allows them to allow homelessness. It allows them to allow people not to be able to pay for food or water. This is a bad thing. If we implement systematic change that allows the government to provide a certain base level of a standard of living, that actually takes pressure off of corporations. Because now the corporations can still do whatever they need to make profit. But we don't have, I guess I should say, corporations don't have to worry about dipping into something that's bad. Like homelessness, right? We cannot allow homelessness. Whether you say that people who are homeless didn't deserve it, that's arguable. Studies show that 40 to 60% of homeless people have a job. And the reason why they're homeless even while having a job is because they're working minimum wage, and that minimum wage itself doesn't support owning a house. It doesn't support rent. Rent is incredibly expensive right now. I know, I'm a college student. I have to live in the city that the college I go to, and it's ridiculously expensive. It's very expensive to find housing here. And that is because these corporations are trying to make profit. And they're doing whatever they can to make profit. And we allow that. We allow them to do that. Even though that these corporations aren't people themselves, they are ran by people. But the people who run them are rich. They don't understand what it's like to be a normal person. So how can we be letting a corporation dictate the basic standard of living? We shouldn't be. It should be the people deciding, and the people being the government, because that's what we are. We are a democracy, or at least we are supposed to be a democracy. But my point is that we have strayed from that. We are no longer a democracy. We have allowed corporations to tell us what we can and cannot do. We have allowed corporations to tell us what is okay to pay for food, for water, for housing. And there isn't anything wrong necessarily as well. Don't get me wrong. There can be private grocery stores, there can be restaurants, all that stuff. However, what we cannot do is say that it is okay for corporations to increase the price of food just because they want more profit. America overproduces food to sell back for a profit to other countries. We have a surplus of food every year that we sell back at a profit. And yet there are still people in America who have trouble paying for food. It doesn't make any sense. It's not right. Earlier, we were talking about reparations and how I think that reparations aren't the best solution. I believe that because, yes, there are black people who have been affected unfairly. And black communities all over the country are worse off than they would have been without slavery. That is a simple fact. It is so easy to see, to logically follow that path of thinking. It makes sense. But there are still poor white people. And so white people get mad when they see this, and then the right, the political right, preys on this, right? Because the political right know the people at the top of the political right, they're not the same as the voters for the right. The voters for the right are normal people. The people at the top of the right are not. They're rich people. And they know that their time is coming. So they rely on falsehoods and the fear. They rely on fear to try and spread their message to as many people as they can, to trick voters into voting against their own freedom. They trick voters into voting against their own rights as workers, and their own rights to be taken care of, so that way they can continue to profit off of us. Because the people on the right, and I'm not saying that Democrats aren't right. Democrats are right. These people are corporations. That's what they stand for. They are for corporations. And we have to do better. We have to do better about taking corporations out of government. Because as long as corporations exist inside of government, it's only going to get worse. Until there was an actual uprising. A violent uprising will happen. Because people are going to get sick and tired of it. People are already struggling to meet ends meet when they're working a full job. Forget about the homeless people for a second. People who have homes and who work 40 hours a week, the full time, are struggling to find money at the end of the week. And that's unacceptable. Unacceptable. Homelessness is a small percentage of the mass majority. But the mass majority is starting to feel the pressures of the system that we live under. And so we need to do something now before it gets too late. Before the corporations destroy this country too much. Before people get so fed up with everything going on that a violent uprising does happen. Because it will happen. People will become desperate enough to actually start using violence. A lot of good will come from ensuring that everyone has necessities of life, regardless of who they are. Most of crime is committed out of need. If we remove that, there will be less crime. Homelessness, like I was saying earlier, 40 to 60% of homeless people have a job. They just can't afford housing. If we give everyone housing, homelessness no longer becomes an issue. And you can say that some people didn't earn it. That's true. Alright? There are some people who are homeless because of the choices they made. It's true. But it doesn't matter. It's a small percentage of those people. It's a small percentage of those people. There are factors that others couldn't control that led them to that situation. It wasn't their choice. They were working. And a lot of people who are homeless are working. There will always be freeloaders in any system. And it's really easy to point at homeless people and say that they're only homeless because of the choices they made. And if they had just worked harder or done this and done that, they wouldn't be homeless. But it's simply not true. Not to mention that even in our current system, there are freeloaders, but there are more freeloaders than just the poor and homeless. But those freeloaders are sitting at the top. There are a lot of people who didn't do any work to get the money they are, but we don't consider them freeloaders. They are. And our government gives the rich a lot of tax cuts and a lot of tax benefits for being rich, even though they didn't make the money themselves. There are a lot of people who made money themselves, but not all of them. Those too are considered freeloaders, at least by definition, but not considered freeloaders in society. Why is that? Why is it only people who are poor that are considered freeloaders? There will always be freeloaders. But that is not a reason to not give everyone necessary resources. It's just not. We need to do better. We need to. Anyway, thank you all for listening, if you did, and I will maybe see you in the next video. I don't know. We'll find out.